Good evening. This is Laws 19038, Planning and Environment Law. This is week number 1 of Term 1, 2015. My name is John Milburn. I'm your course coordinator. Thank you for joining us and thank you for enrolling in this subject. I do encourage people to join us live in the Zoom sessions. They will be conducted every Wednesday night at 7:45 p.m. and they normally run for about half an hour or so. Each week I will provide material for you to consider that will very often be by Zoom videos that I upload, and the sessions that we have live are intended to be, as much as anything, tutorial sessions, an opportunity to ask questions and to interact. So please join us in that regard. Just a reminder, if you do join us in the Zoom sessions, they are uploaded through YouTube onto Moodle, so your consent to being part of something which is uploaded will be given by your attendance through the Zoom session. If you want to join the session live but you're not particularly keen on being on camera, then there is always the facility of having your camera turned off so we can only hear you, or if you would rather not be heard or seen, you can still interact by using what's called a chat facility. So if you haven't used Zoom before, I encourage you to do so and join us live if you possibly can. Now, hopefully by now you've considered what we need to do in this course, and in that regard, our course is based around this excellent text, which is Bates' Environmental Law in Australia. That's the only prescribed text this year. I took this course last year and I did prescribe another text, which is also very good, but I felt it was a little overwhelming to have more than this, which is already, as you can see, a very thick book. That other text is Philippa England's Sustainable Planning Law. Part of the reason for not prescribing it also is that the Sustainable Planning Act is in the process of being overturned by new legislation. So I didn't want you to buy something that was almost immediately going to be out of date. Look, there are some other excellent textbooks available. One that I really like, and it's quite cheap, is this one here. And that is the Community Litigants Handbook. It's in relation to environmental law. It's brought out by the Environmental Defender's Office. And that's a really practical way to look at environmental law. Now, I should say the emphasis of this course is essentially legal. Now, part of that is that I'm a lawyer, and apart from providing course coordination through Central Queensland University, which I love to do, I spend most of my days in court one way or the other, either as an advocate or hearing cases in different jurisdictions. And as a result of that, and the fact that I'm a lawyer and I've been either studying law or practicing law almost every day since 1977, the course will have an emphasis on legal practice. The study modules, as excellent as they are, were written by my predecessor, who looked at this course more from a scientific perspective and analytical perspective rather than a legal perspective. Now, given that it is a planning and environment law course, I'm changing the emphasis, so it's much more in terms of the legal side of it. Now, I know that many of you aren't actually undertaking an LLB course or not necessarily intending to practice as a lawyer. So I apologise for this comment in advance, but the course will be structured as if it is two people that want to practice in law. Now, you might think that's a little odd, but the idea is that at least you can understand how lawyers think about the way they practice, and you may find yourself having to instruct a lawyer or perhaps even become a lawyer at some stage. So there will be that emphasis, partly because of my background and the way I think the course should be run. It will be, as much as possible, a practical course. So you've probably looked at the assignment work and gleaned from that you need to read real cases and you need to make a comment in relation to real legislation. So just as an overview, our law is built around law which is created through Parliament, which is statute law, or acts, And the other way is through common law, which is judge-made law. Now, many years ago, the common law was by far the most important part of the law in terms of volume. Most of the law was determined by reference to what had been decided in previous cases through precedent. And that was the way lawyers determined what the law was on a particular topic. Progressively and increasingly, parliamentary law, statutes, have become more important in terms of their numbers. So you'll often see law, particularly in environmental law, determined by reference not of cases, but by reference to statutes, by acts of parliament. And where there is a conflict, parliamentary law will always override case law. So case law is designed to, in many ways, interpret and refine the parliamentary law. And nice to see you, Anne, and thank you very much for your contribution in terms of providing an alternate link to the website on question 2.3. So, Anne, I'm just going to ask if you could mute your microphone. Having said that, we'd love to hear from you and the other people that are online as well. And if you have any questions, please just unmute your microphone and come in and make a comment or ask a question. There is also the excellent chat facility, which is down the bottom of the screen on the right-hand side, and you can just ask any questions or make any comments as you go through. So the emphasis of the course will be in terms of practicality. It will be about the legal aspect rather than the scientific aspect, and the assignments, I think, reflect that. Each week there will be some YouTube videos for you to consider, which is me talking to camera, and primarily that will be my commentary in relation to the Bates publication. Look, there's just so much reading that you could do in environmental law that you could drive yourself absolutely crazy doing this course by doing nothing but reading environmental law material. So I'm going to give you some tips now on how to survive the course and how to enjoy the course, because I really do want you to enjoy this course. The first is that when it comes to reading, by far the most important resource is simply the text which I have prescribed. So read Bates. That's where I want you to do most of your reading, and that will be the emphasis. Now, that's reflected in the prescribed reading for each week, and you'll see that many of the topics that we'll discuss week by week match or mirror the topics that are referred to in Bates. There are, of course, the study guides. They were written by my predecessor. They're very good from a scientific, analytical perspective. However, I wouldn't want you to get too caught up in those because they are written from an entirely different perspective. And you'll see in those study guides, there's reference to material, links, etc., which may be difficult to find, particularly through the library resources. I'm going to ask a favour, and that is that don't worry too much about that. By all means, look at the study guides, look at some of the links if you wish, but perhaps be guided by Bates and be guided by what I contribute, either through Moodle or UCrew or through my comments in relation to the Zoom sessions that I upload. All right, now I know I'm doing a lot of talking, and as I said, I do invite you to jump in, ask any questions, make any comments, or live or through the chat facility if you wish at any stage. Now, hopefully, you've adopted this practice when it comes to surviving and passing this course. The first is, I don't want you to take this too seriously. Now, don't take that the wrong way. That doesn't mean that I don't think this is an interesting and serious subject which is worthy of great respect. It is. It's a terrific subject. It's a very interesting subject. But I don't want you to become so overwhelmed that you think it's difficult and not able to be passed. The fact is that in this subject, if you're diligent and you put in a reasonable effort, then you will pass the subject. If you want to go for gold, then absolutely, I'm with you 100%. But please don't be so overwhelmed that it becomes stressful for you. So read through the material and read the assignment work and watch the videos that I upload. Now, if I was in your position, working out how to deal with this subject, the very first thing I would do, you've probably done this already, is look at the assessment pieces and work backwards. And you think, all right, these are the assessment pieces. This is when I need to have my material in and uploaded. So let's work out a study plan and a technique for ensuring that at least we get the basics in. Bear in mind, of course, that with your assignment work, if you're late, you will be deducted 5% for every day that you're late. And that's really annoying when it's totally avoidable. It's totally avoidable. So do get your assignment in on time, work backwards, make sure that you allow some time for things that will go wrong, because everyone will have things that will go wrong. You'll either not be well, or family will not be well, or it'll be raining, or internet connection will be down, or whatever. I'm a bit tough on extension applications, I'm sorry. So do try and get your work in as early as you can in that regard. So work backwards. Think about, what do I need to do to achieve a pass mark, maybe better, and then work out that plan. So that's the starting point. Look at the assessment work and try to determine it. Look, I'm going to just take a break for a moment and ask a question. Now you can answer this either through the chat facility, or you can just unmute your microphone and answer it for me. From this end, everything works fine. I'm able to access UCrew via Moodle, and I'm able to look at the assignment work through Moodle, but I'm not at all convinced that that's necessarily the case for the students. So firstly, with UCrew, on the Moodle page, you would have seen the link directly into UCrew on the top left-hand side. Now, is that working for everyone? Can you give me some indication? Have we had a look at UCrew? Yes, Anne?
Yes, it is for me, John.
Okay, that's good. Thanks very much, Anne. And Karina, is that working for you?
Yep, one minute.
It's working? Great, okay, thank you. Now, what about the assignment work? This is really puzzling me as to whether if you push the link on the assignment, whether the assignment is actually coming up on your screen.
No, it's still saying it's hidden and not available at the moment.
What, the whole thing, the whole assignment?
Assessment 1 link and Assessment 2 link are both saying the same thing.
Oh, okay. Look, I've raised this with, I'm doing another course at the moment. I've done other courses in the past, and I've never had this issue before. I raised it with IT, and I got a response today saying, yes, the link in question 2.3 is now a secure link, so you'll have to take it up with them. I thought, no, they've misunderstood me. I didn't communicate my request carefully enough. So, and if you click on the left-hand side, top left-hand side, for the assessments, nothing comes through. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that's correct, John. It says, sorry, this activity is currently hidden. And then it takes you in a circle back to the front page of the law page.
Okay. All right. I'll go back to IT. Now, is everyone experiencing that same problem?
Yeah, I've had the same issue as well.
Yeah, thanks, Leighton. Yep, we're getting lots of nods. So, look, my apologies. And for that reason, I thought I would copy and paste into an email those various assignments. Now, I take it everyone received those assignments, so you at least know what you have to do. Did you get that, Leighton? That came through? Okay, all right. So
yes, yeah.
That's great. Okay, so at least we know what the assessment work is, but assuming that you're not ready to upload your assessment, you won't need to.
No.
Well, not just yet. All right, good. I'll see if I can sort that through IT, and please keep me posted progressively as to how that's going. All right, but you've all had a chance to look at UCrew, I take it. That's where I'd like most of the discussions to take place, through that facility. And it's a great way to join study groups as well and interact with students. It's very good karma to share your material. If you come across something which you think would be of interest to your colleagues, your fellow students, please upload it onto YouCrew. Share it, we can discuss it, and I will thank you for that. So please do so. Now, each week I will be providing you with some YouTube clips. I'm sorry there's a few at the start. Many of them are quite short. They will have a practical flavour to them as much as possible. To acknowledge that there is a lot of reading material, I propose to provide you with my take, if you like, my summary of what's in Bates on a week-by-week basis. And that's not necessarily to say that what I've selected is the most important part of the chapter. It's what I think is important, what I think we should emphasise. So if you wish, you can follow me on that YouTube, which I'll put each week. So, for example, in week number 1, dealing with chapter number 1, in Bates 8th edition, paragraph 1.15, I have paraphrased what's written, and you'll see more specifically that I've paraphrased what I've highlighted. I just wanted to talk to you about the highlighting. I think it's important. It's a technique that I use, but you'll see there that in paragraph 1.15, I haven't highlighted every word in the paragraph. My view is that if you do that, there's no point in highlighting it. It doesn't make what you want to stand out actually stand out. So the technique that I use is that I selectively highlight different words. You'll see it in that first paragraph in particular. And if you read what's highlighted, it will actually form a sentence in its own right. And that's a quick way to remind me of what that paragraph is all about, and I've taken the key concepts. So if that's a study technique that works for you, then I'd encourage you to use that. And my text is littered with selective, very selective highlighting. So don't go overboard, otherwise it'll defeat the purpose. There is a lot of reading in the material, and you need to find a way of getting through it without becoming completely overwhelmed. And do have fun with it, as I said. Now, presentation of your work. I've provided you with what I call my sample document. There's no real magic in that sample document. It's just my, if you like, example of something that works for me. I'm sure that many of you who are more proficient in the use of Word will come up with something that looks better than what I've done. But there are a few key things that I want you to take from that. The first is that the sample document is internally consistent. I've used the same fonts, the same size fonts. I've used the same headings. You might think, well, that's presentation. That doesn't matter too much. But remember, we're teaching this subject from the perspective that you are a lawyer. I know many of you won't be, but from that perspective, and you're probably aware that lawyers charge $400 an hour or so. So if you can't present something that looks appealing, then people will say, why am I paying this money? So I want it to be very professionally presented. Now, I would suggest that you don't upload your document until you've done a good spell check and you've actually checked your grammar. Look, in Word, you get those little green lines and you get the little red lines. Use those things to your advantage. If there's a little green line, it probably means that you've got something misspelled. Fix it. Get rid of the green. Likewise, or it might be the other way around. And the other one is the grammar. Use those, correct them, and then get rid of those squiggles. That's my suggestion anyway, so that you've got a very professional presentation. Now, on that sample document, do have a look at the way in which I've structured the sentences. Many of them are quite short. Do avoid the temptation or laziness, perhaps, of having long, rambling sentences. And you would have seen in one of my preliminary videos the comparison that I made about saying something in a very long-winded fashion compared to saying the same thing in a short, sharp, succinct manner. So what we don't want is long, rambling sentences that never seem to finish, and they just keep going on and on because people don't actually use a full stop, and they keep using the word and or there, for, and continuing, and it just never seems to finish. And it's really quite annoying, don't you think? Alternatively, think about what you want to say and say it. All right? Don't use gobbledygook, don't use legalese. Look, good thing about practicing in law is there's not necessarily going to be a right or a wrong answer. So use that to your advantage. So when you're discussing the case law or the legislation, which is part of the assessment work, feel free to express a considered opinion in relation to it. It may be that what you express in your considered opinion is different to what I believe to be the case. That doesn't mean that you'll be marked down. It's quite possible for you to get 100%, even though I think your conclusion is wrong. Now, you might think that's odd, particularly if you're coming from a discipline where certainty and exactness is called for. You see, in law, it's more a matter of mounting an argument and being persuasive and interpreting something in a certain way which might appeal. It may not appeal to everyone, but it might appeal. Now, think about it logically. When we're looking at cases, they're expensive things to run a case. So one can assume that most of the time, the people that are involved in the litigation have had lawyers advising them. And assume for the moment, there's a fair number of times where people have gone into court both thinking that they're going to win. And you'd think that would be most of the time. And that we have thousands and tens of thousands of cases. So the point is this: there's not necessarily going to be the right answer. You might have some legislation or some case law interpreted differently by different experienced people. So if you interpret something a certain way, provided you can back it up with good argument, then that's what I asked for. So I'm not necessarily looking for the right answer. Now, of course, having said that, you might put in something that is totally wrong. And that's different from advancing an argument which is logical and supportable. So use that to your advantage. Have some fun. Don't put too much pressure on yourself thinking there must be an absolute certain correct answer as opposed to an incorrect answer. All right, now I'm just looking at the chat facility and I'm just slowing for a moment to see if there are any questions on the chat facility, or does anyone want to come in live and ask a question? Not at this stage. That's fine. Do look at those videos that I've put on Moodle, and I hope that you get something from them. Do collaborate, join study groups if you can. Importantly, have a look at the way in which you can access the law in relation to environmental law by referring to the online resources. One of my particular favourites is Ostly, and if you go into Ostly, then have a look at the Note Up facility. You'll see it on the bar on the top, and it's an excellent way of looking at cases which have been referred to in particular sections of acts, and in the converse can apply when you're looking at cases. You'll see in the material the key legislation from a Commonwealth perspective. It's the Environment Protection and Biodiversity Conservation Act, and from a state perspective, the Sustainable Planning Act. But there are other acts in the state jurisdiction that are very important, such as Vegetation Management Act, Nature Conservation, Environmental Protection, and the State Development and Public Works Organisation Act. So have a look at those. If you really want to feel like you're excelling in this subject, one thing you could consider doing is subscribing for daily updates in relation to environmental law, which will be sent directly to your phone or computer or to your laptop through Barnett Jade. Barnett Jade is unauthorised, but it's very popular, and each day I get an email from Barnett Jade saying, here are the latest cases relevant to your areas of interest in law. Now, the good thing is that's free, and Ostly is free. So you've got all these wonderful resources to supplement what you've been asked to read in Bates. All right, so you should by now have looked at the assignments and thought to yourself, how can I work backwards to make sure that these assignments can be done? Think about the progress that you need to make on a weekly basis. Do try and stay ahead of your reading. I would recommend that you take the text and sort of, in a sense, flick through it pretty quickly to get a feel for it all, and then read chapter by chapter. Now, if you look at the way in which I've set out the course profile, you can really get a sense of the fact that some chapters are more important than others. So, for example, I think in week number, coming to it now, in week number 9, there's about 7 chapters that I've prescribed. So you probably don't need to read those in the same sort of detail that you might need to consider in, say, week 8, where there's only 1 chapter prescribed. So that'll give you a hint as to what I think is more important in many different ways. All right, well, I know I've been doing a lot of talking. Unless there are any questions, we're probably getting to the stage where that's all I really wanted to say for tonight. Nothing on the chat facility. There are some things that I want you to consider for next week, though. Do have a look at Moodle, have a look at UCrew, register in UCrew, make sure you're registered in Zoom. Have a look at the videos each week. Read the chapters that I've prescribed. Don't spend too much time on the study guides. Do look at the sample document that I've prepared and find out in your own mind which is the best way to access legislation and case law online. Do answer the questions, the questions that I sent each week, and I'll look at the different answers and encourage you to answer those, and I'll provide you with my thoughts as well. And of course, do share your material, as I mentioned before. Now, by the end of this week, you should really have gained an appreciation of the doctrine of separation of powers. You should gain an appreciation of the Australian legal system, and also the principle of terra nullius, which is the Mabo decision. So that's as far as I think we need to go for this week. All right, are there any questions, comments? Nothing at this stage?
No, nothing from me, John, thanks.
All right, thank you very much, Anne. All right, and I'm getting nods from others. So I'm going to end the recording now. Thank you very much.